You're ready.
Okay, so right now we're 1 week into the negotiations for the COP15, and things have heated up a lot. There's been a lot of actions on the inside and mobilizations both by civil society and by southern governments who are really trying to push hard in various different ways, sometimes coordinated, sometimes not, to get real targets for emissions reductions by the rich countries, to get a funds-based or debt or ecological debt-based financing mechanism, so to get historic responsibility from the industrial countries and to provide the funding for mitigation and adaptation. And also really a lot of work being done on reducing emissions from deforestation and forest degradation through what's called the REDS by the Indigenous Peoples Caucus. And there's where it stands right now is there's kind of a stalemate happening. The industrial countries are proposing things that nobody in the global south can really accept reasonably. What the president of the Maldives is called the Suicide Pact, and the question coming into the next week of negotiations is anything going to get agreed upon at all, even a political agreement, and if so, is that going to be something that civil society and social movements and the global south can endorse? And the answer to that is most likely not. And so the question is now, in the coming week, are the negotiations going to collapse, and on what grounds? Are they going to collapse because, or who's going to get to frame the collapse? Is it going to be the rich countries saying that the talks collapsed because there were splits within the South? Or is it going to collapse because the southern countries say we're not willing to accept anything that the industrial countries are being put on the table, and we're going to say that no agreement is better than a bad agreement? And in that scenario, if we can win the framing of the collapse of negotiations in that scenario, we buy ourselves time to build more power to actually create greater coordination between social movements and southern governments moving towards the preparatory conferences and the next conference of parties in Mexico in 2010. And I think that's really the key thing right now. There's an incredible cross-pollination between social movements on the outside and southern governments on the inside, really trying to figure out what's the best way to advance the three-pronged demands of real reductions, reparations, and rights. So real reductions means targeted reductions at the source without offsets. Reparations means climate debt or ecological debt, where the North has to pay the South for over-consuming atmospheric space and for mitigation and adaptation. And rights, meaning that all of the declarations will be subordinated to the Universal Declaration on Human Rights, both of them, the Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples, and so on, the rights of biodiversity, and so on. So one of the big things that's coming up is on the 16th is the Reclaim Power action, in which social movements on the outside and civil society on the inside, along with southern governments, very well do a coordinated action that results in total disruption of the talks.